Okay, so today we're going to continue our discussion about Pinry, and we're actually going to start working a little bit on understanding how to extend it. Pinry, in my opinion, is very well written, an interesting program, and fun to work with, but I think it's also missing quite a bit of functionality that I personally would like to see. So I've done a little bit of work on adding some of that functionality, and perhaps if you get the understanding of how the whole Pinry program is written, you can also help write some more. So what I'm going to do today is really just show you some of the dependencies and libraries that Pinry depends on. I'll put up a list with some links to read more about those libraries and dependencies, and it may be a good idea just to skip this video and look at them yourself. But if you are, like myself, a visual learner and like to watch video, I'll certainly give you a short guided tour. I'm not an expert in any of these dependencies or libraries, but I got to understand what they're about, and I'll share that with you. Obviously, the first place to look is right here in Pinry, and we would check out the requirements.txt. I'm a Sublime user. Great program, by the way. So we'll check that out in Sublime. Okay, the first dependency is Django, and if you don't know what Django is, probably this video is not for you. Don't mean to be like that, but that's kind of the way it is. The next one is Pillow, which Pillow is actually a Python library, and let's take a quick peek at what Pillow's all about. We go to the read the docs for Pillow, and you can see it's really all about images. It's about archiving images, displaying images, processing images, etc., etc. There's no doubt about it, Pinry is very dependent on Pillow, and you really should get at least some idea of how Pillow works in order to move ahead with playing with Pinry. This was my first exposure to Pillow, and it really seems like a very interesting program for many other things that I've been thinking about. The next one is South. South, again, if you're using Django, it's hard to imagine that you haven't come across South yet. South is very, very important in terms of extending the database functionality of Django, and really it lets you update your database in ways that Django syncdb doesn't really do very well. It has some other positives as well, but South is something you've definitely got to learn if you're using Django in any serious way. The next one is requests, and requests, as you see right here on their website, they read the docs, HTTP for humans, and that is because the Python HTTP is sometimes a little bit long and difficult to work with, so they've kind of made things much simpler, and most specifically the requests for HTTP, simplifying that tremendously. From here forward, we're talking about Django extensions. The first one is Taggit, also another one that I had never seen before and looks very interesting. Taggit really lets you create a great tagging system, and there you have some examples of how it might work. If you put in apple ball cat, it's going to tag as apple, comma ball, comma cat. On the other hand, if you put apple, comma ball cat, you'll have one which is apple and the second one which is ball cat, etc., etc. Bottom line is it really simplifies the whole tagging process, and certainly writing the code for tagging. Obviously today tagging is a critical component in many web applications, so it definitely bears learning more about and is very important in Pinry. From there we move on to django-images. Django-images is primarily a thumbnailing solution, and in an app like Pinry that is very dependent on images and creating thumbnails, it solves a lot of problems. And you'll see when we actually go into Pinry that this is very, very important, this paragraph right here. We also force you to define all thumbnail options in Django settings, and you'll see it right there in the Pinry that in the settings it gives you the thumbnail options. And this obviously is a great idea, as they explain further, because then you may wind up having all of these extra thumbnails being created that you don't even know are happening and are flooding your system. So this way it's stuck right in the front of the settings, and that's the only place it's going to look for information about which types of thumbnails to create. From there we move on to django-braces. Again, another great program which I had not learned about before, which has a whole bunch of very useful features, helping you control access to pages, as well as creating forms, etc., etc. Really a lot of just great helper functions that can make your life much, much easier. And it's written, of course, specifically as a Django extension. From there we move on to Django compressor, which compresses, as it says right there, linked and inline JavaScript or CSS into a single cached file. So that's really good for the speed of your download and the speed of your site. Again, I've never used it before, but it looks very useful and looks like good stuff. Finally, we have django-tastypie, which I have had the opportunity to use a number of times. Really a great extension, and it's all about creating an API for your data. And you'll see also when we get into the Pinry program itself that it relies very heavily on the API to display the images as well as other data for each of the pins. It's obviously also very good if you want to somehow allow other people access to the API, and that is really what tastypie is all about. So that's pretty much it for the Python and Django dependencies and extensions. But if you'll notice, there's also a number of JavaScript libraries that are included as well, and then you have to look a little deeper than the requirements page. For these ones we need to actually go into the program itself, and they're inside of the static folder. And there's a JS folder which is part of the Pinry JavaScript, but the ones that they take from outside are in the vendor folder. And there you have them. You've got Bootstrap, FineUploader, Handlebars, and Jquery. Let's take a look at what each one of these do. Bootstrap, as it says right on their website, the most popular front-end framework for developing responsive, mobile-first projects on the web. There are people who are real experts in this. I don't want to pretend to be that. It really allows you to make your project responsive using JavaScript. The next one is FineUploader, which is a great JavaScript library, again, which I was just introduced to. Loving learning about all these different libraries. And as you see right here, it allows you to do a bunch of uploads, and it includes progress bar, drag and drop, retry, and some more complicated stuff as well. Really some great stuff to work with. And obviously Pinry, being very much about uploading files, images specifically is very reliant on this library. The next one, again, a great library, is Handlebars. And when you think handlebars, you probably start with a bicycle, but this one actually refers to mustache, which Handlebars extends mustache. And it's really all about building semantic templates that can be loaded through JavaScript. So that's pretty cool. Again, something new for me and a lot of fun. And the final one is Jquery. And once again, just like I said about Django, if you don't know what Jquery is, likely this video didn't have very much meaning for you. But Jquery, of course, being one of the all-time great JavaScript libraries with tons and tons of functionality for common uses. So that's pretty much it. Those are the external programs that Pinry depends upon, the dependencies and libraries. And it really pays to at least get the basic idea of how they work before you start trying to play with Pinry. At the very least, you should know what they do. 3 or 4 of them are very integral to Pinry, and you're going to see code that that refers to them specifically, and as we go through them, I'll try and point it out.